I think the most fascinating thing with what we've seen in the economics of cannabis is the way that consumers are willing to transition their purchasing over to a legal and regulated market if it meets their needs. So cannabis has provided a really fascinating laboratory of democracy across all of these origin histories, right? So for the first decade or so, from 1996 to about 2008, all of these laws that passed, almost all of them, were patient caregiver systems. These were non-commercial, either implicitly or explicitly non-commercial laws. These laws were used so that a patient could either grow their own or have a patient caregiver grow for them. In some places, these were very popular, right? Even in states where there were explicitly non-commercial, there weren't really storefronts. A lot of medical cannabis patients got access through these. Hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people got access through these kind of non-commercial systems. Then we started to see them commercialized. This was in the end of the Bush administration, early Obama. That's when the first Ogden memo came out, said we're not going to go after patient caregivers. That exploded into a lot of different stores. And we still saw some enforcement in California on these sorts of things. But once we started having storefronts, they became even more popular, right? So one, it's at a field of dreams, right? If you build it, they will come. But the dynamic is you have to build a system that actually attracts consumers and provides them with a set of goods that is better than what they can get in the illicit market. So this is why, and we'll talk later about like why places like Texas haven't really succeeded in their medical program, is because the program there does not provide consumers with what they want, right? And I always talk about three main things. It's the three A's. You need accessibility, affordability, and assortment, right? You need to be able to get the cannabis products you want, which includes flower, concentrates, edibles, all this, your full assortment. They need to be affordable. So your price can't be significantly higher than the illicit market, right? If your legal prices are twice what your illegal prices are, people aren't going to necessarily switch over. And then third, they need to be accessible. So you need time is money to a certain extent. If you have to drive half a state away, you're going to keep going to the illicit market, because they either deliver it to your house or it's from a drug dealer that's not too far away. So with that sort of thing, over the last 10 years, a little more than 10 years, MPP actually just put out today a release that there's been more than $24.7 billion in tax revenue since legal adult use sales began. So that's 24.7 billion represents many billions of dollars that are going to legal businesses, that are going to tax-paying businesses, that are employing people and paying tax revenue, and the ancillary businesses that are around them. This is really in many of these different markets, right? Whether it's in California, you've got about a $4 billion or so market. Colorado's been up and down, but we see about a $2 billion market. Michigan's over $3 billion market. Florida is likely similar, over $3 billion market. Pennsylvania is close to $2 billion. These huge markets across the country, and some of them are much smaller, some of them are growing, they're in different stages. But what we've seen through there is really an opportunity for cannabis to be regulated in the way that it should have been regulated many decades ago. And that is essentially in a somewhat similar way that we regulate alcohol, although we'll talk about beverages. Those are actually going through an alcohol regulatory standpoint. But from the cannabis standpoint, it's really different regulations at the state level. Now, hopefully, eventually we'll get federal standards in production, but different states are going to, some will allow delivery, some will have lots of stores, some will have a handful of stores. Some even in the future may have state-run stores in the way we have state-run alcohol stores, although that bill failed in Pennsylvania. But it's really just an opportunity for that laboratory of democracy to show what succeeds.
Okay. And so cannabis legalization has been through many different chapters, really, and it has had a fast movement and momentum across lots of different states. But a lot of states didn't legalize cannabis for adult use or for medical, or didn't do so in a way that really hit all those A's that you just talked about, which I
Yeah.
love.